Love, that ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries.
Welcome, fellow Phoenixes. I'm Ross Cessna, and together we are the Spiritual Phoenix. The intent of this show isn't to tell you what to think, but to get you to think and originally articulate yourself in a way that is uplifting. We are the artists of our lives, and today is a blank canvas. Let's collectively create a better tomorrow. And now I'd like to take a moment and focus on what we're grateful for today. Today, I'm grateful that I tried out a new art technique. I've kind of just used droppers of, I mixed paint with water and then used droppers of it on a canvas that I had painted black and kind of guided the paint and then let it run as I moved the canvas around. It's pretty interesting to see how that came out and how I really like the concept of it. I'm going to play with it more and further develop it. And I'd like to read a review that I have, and I don't have many, but maybe you could leave a review if you like the podcast, because it'll help me reach some new people. This one is from Nessa0410. I enjoy listening to the Spiritual Phoenix podcast because Ross has a lot of interesting background and insight to his perceived past and present. I enjoy his evaluation of his personal experiences, and I feel like I am in good company while listening. Thank you, Nessa0410. I appreciate that. Now we're going to get into a couple quotes for today's episode. As a kid, you learn that there are thinkers, and there are philosophers, and there are theologians. And I'd hear little bits of the idea that these people pursued or developed or created, and I'd be really excited. Then I'll start to read it, and I think, wait a minute, this is a rabbit hole. This isn't a gateway or a ticket to anything except itself. And that was said by William Oldham. There isn't a thing to eat down there in that rabbit hole of your bitterness except your own desperate heart. And that was said by Cheryl Strayed. And today's episode is coming out of the rabbit hole. Now, there's this popular phrase or whatever it is, going down the rabbit hole. And I understand that that's in relation to Alice in Wonderland. But the thing about a lot of the times when you're quote unquote going down the rabbit hole, you're actually learning more stuff and it's kind of expanding upon things. To me, a rabbit hole is this narrow perceived channel that leads, it limits you, it suffocates you. And I've gone down the rabbit hole, whether it be the conspiracy rabbit hole, this rabbit hole, that rabbit hole, and it becomes your sole focus because you don't have all the other experiences out there. And ultimately, let's say the rabbit hole goes on forever, what you're doing is you're just digging down deeper into this stuff. To me, I don't want to be going down the rabbit hole. I want to be coming out of the rabbit hole. And that's really what my experience has been, because I had such a narrow perception. And the further I come out of this rabbit hole, the wider things open up. There's this concept in conspiracy circles where you got to find this ultimate truth, and they get so far down in there, everything's a conspiracy and everybody's out to get them. Or you get down the rabbit hole of religion and you fall down in this whole thing too, where everything narrows down. And I shouldn't say everything for everybody. Some people, they go into religion and it does broaden for them, but a lot of people go into the religious rabbit hole and this narrowed perception of things, and if people don't fit into their rabbit hole, then they're enemies, or they're less than, or this or that, or the rabbit hole of politics. I'm going to entrench myself in this political party so much, and all of this stuff. And like, people identify themselves with their rabbit hole logic. If you're coming out of the rabbit hole, and let's say you're coming out of the rabbit hole and shooting into space or something, the further you get away from that rabbit hole, the more unification you can see from things. When you're in the rabbit hole, all you see is this little tunnel. And like I said, I was down in the conspiracy rabbit hole. There's these elite, and they're doing this or that, and I'm not going to say that there aren't conspiracies. I'm well aware that they are. Historically, conspiracies are likely as old as human beings are. The word conspiracy means with the breath, meaning like with the breath of others, like in a huddled mass, basically. And logically, that goes on. Anybody that thinks that conspiracies don't is somewhat foolish. I want to do an episode next week or sometime soon called the conspiracy, and like a little snippet of that would be, conspiracies of themselves are disempowering because people follow that down, and it disenfranchises them in lots of ways because it's so disempowering. And people may find it empowering, but they're sitting there going into this, there's these people, these quote-unquote elites, and they say how they're not better than them, but they still give them the term elites. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And Terence McKenna had this concept. Here's the thing that's more frightening than being controlled by this secret cabal. Nobody controls anything. And there's this inherent punishment in them trying to control stuff because of the misery they're creating for themselves because it won't work out. Try to get one person to do everything that you want them to do. Try to steer one person and see how frustrating that can be. And I understand that there is a lot of nefarious things going on, but me focusing on that all the time doesn't change it. I can do positive changes, and for some people that's going to be viewed as wishy-washy, new age bullcrap. And you know what? Ultimately, that's totally fine if that's how they perceive it. I've seen the benefit of doing that kind of stuff. If I was still in that fear rabbit hole of they're doing this, they're doing that, bippity boppity, I don't have any power to change it, what can I do? Revolution. All that stuff, all that rabbit hole does is take me away from the actual solution. And to me, that's what rabbit holes are. And if you view the concept of like these tunnels underground, think of the Vietnam War. They had these different holes that were cut out through the jungle, but they would have booby traps in them, all sorts of horrible things. And that's kind of what rabbit holes are in some opinions. And they get you stuck in this lower mire. And if it like starts to metaphorically rain and you're down in that rabbit hole, you're going to drown. So it's best to stay in the fresh open air, keep your mind sharp, explore new ideas so you're not pigeonholed or rabbit-holed into these things where you can't see, you're not open to other ideas, you're not pursuing different things. A lot of people, myself included, I fall into this sometimes, fall into this trap of thinking they have things solved or thinking that they know things. I got into a discussion with somebody. They were curious about how I said society is a matrix within a matrix. And then I explained to them society is in the matrix of the world, which is in the matrix of the solar system, which is in the matrix of the galaxy, which is in the matrix of the universe, which is likely in some other matrix that we don't even know. And then they said, oh, so you believe in the holographic universe? And it's like, nothing that I said would imply that. And then they said, well, what makes you feel this way, that we're in all these different matrices? And it's kind of like, well, I would say that common sense does. And if you look at the definition of matrix, what it actually means, not what people think it means from the movie The Matrix. A matrix is something in which something develops. So therefore, it's absolutely true that it is, as I said it is. I mean, no matter what it would be, we're in some kind of matrix. Whether this is just an illusion, whether this is a simulation, which I'm not a big fan of that theory. Like, no matter what, it's some kind of matrix because something has developed in it. So I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but people have these concepts of things, and then they try to put everything else in another person's, try to put somebody else's opinions in their constructs, and they don't understand why it doesn't work out. So they've pigeonholed / rabbit-holed themselves into these beliefs. Like I said, I do it too. I can't really go on anymore on this topic. I'm saving the conspiracy thing to go further down, further into next week, further out of the rabbit hole with, to kind of have a broader understanding of it. You can follow me on social media at Spiritual Phoenix, or visit the website thespiritualphoenix.com. Also, I just made a Instagram account for my tarot readings, and I have a Facebook page for my tarot readings too, where I post cards daily that I pull, and that's at Spiritual Phoenix Tarot. If you could please leave a review if you like the podcast, and if you could like and share the videos if it resonates with you. I love, respect, and appreciate all of you. Love and light. Namaste.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply